A quick reminder, we are less than 3 weeks before the tax deadline. Are you one who is planning on filing a tax extension? Yes or no? Your friendly CPA can be the guiding light at this point. Don't panic, they say. But anyways, I'm no CPA. I'll let you enjoy the good and yet brief company of our CPA in the studio this morning. His good name is CPA Adil Baloch from the CPA firm of Accurate Tax Records and Services. This is located in Montgomery Village, Maryland. The moderator on this feature is attorney Ramesh Khurana from the Khurana Law Firm. Let's hear these two gentlemen.
I'm Ramesh Khurana, attorney at law. I have my office in Gaithersburg, Maryland. Today I have a great pleasure in presenting you Mr. Adil Baloch, who is a very experienced and knowledgeable CPA. Mr. Baloch, welcome to our studios.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Baloch, today I am going to ask you questions about abatements of IRS penalties. Nobody knows better than you do that most of the people are scared of paying penalties. As we know that people even hate to pay taxes, what to talk of paying penalties. But I understand that there are ways and means to reduce these penalties. And would you please like to tell us just a few bullet points, like how can you do it in the interest of time?
Sure. Mr. Khurana, first of all, I must appreciate, I must thank you the way you introduce me every week. I really appreciate that. I think you do that because you're a good friend, but I appreciate it anyways.
My dear friend, you deserve it. you are
much.
a very competent CPA. There's no denying the fact.
Talking about penalties, I was looking at some statistics earlier today. I know, being a professional myself, I know that most people, and when I say most people, it's a pretty good majority. It's an overwhelming majority of people in this country that it is known that they really do not want to deal with any kind of conflicts, of controversies. If they get a bill, they just pay and move on without ever even looking into it. Of they might have something that they could possibly fight or request or something like that.
You mean as a result of correspondence audit?
Correct, something
right?
like that. If you have something from the IRS that it's a balance owed, there's principal, there's interest, there's penalties, whatever the balance is, people usually just look at the bottom line, write the check and send it out. They are done, they move on. You may have sent in $5,000, $1,200 of which was just the penalties. You have no clue that that's $1,200 could have been as easy as just picking up the phone and calling the IRS. They would have taken care of it.
Well, let me ask you a question. Now, let's say in this kind of situation when there is a correspondence audit and they ask you for a very small amount, let's say about $600-700, and you think that I'm not going to engage the services of a CPA and pay me $1,000. Instead, I will just write a check to the IRS and move on. So, is it not true that you would like to keep your record unblemished? So, will your record reflect it that you are subjected to certain penalties?
So what happens is that there's a thing called FTA, first time abatement. If your records have always been clean, you have never been late before, and you have never been late in paying your taxes or filing your taxes or whatever the case may be, that's just the first, the foremost, and the very basic right, I would say, is what you have. Regardless of the amount of penalty, even if it's $20, $30, it's something that could easily be waived. It's a phone call. How long does it take to, I mean, with the technology these days, you're driving back from work, you have 45, 50 minutes on the road, just put it on your Bluetooth and just wait until you get to a live person and just tell them that you have been always in the good books, your history is unblemished, it's a clean history. Just abate the penalty for me as a first-time courtesy, and they would gladly do it for you.
Now, would you please like to tell the viewers how much time does it take really to get the live person online, if you have any question for it?
Very good question. Up until, I would say, about the end of December last year, yeah, it was taking people, in excess of 60, 70 minutes just to get to a live person. If you actually heard in the news, the IRS has actually added some more resources to address that. Your phone calls are, at least I have noticed that in the past few weeks, Your phone calls are, I mean, granted, nobody's picking up the phone on the first ring, but yeah, your phone calls are being answered much faster than they did before. It's not that bad. It is, yeah, I mean, you know, if you follow the instructions that they provide, that you call certain time of the day and certain days of the week, it really helps. You can actually, you know, call during those hours. If it's just a few $100s that you're fighting, just look for the quiet time. Call in, they will gladly take care of it for you, and you can just move on from there. Just so, let me just give you a very small example. IRS in 2014 assessed penalties in excess of 25 billion. That's a billion with a B. They assessed penalties over $25 billion. The abatement, on the other hand, from that $25 billion penalties, the abatement was right around 10 billion. About 39–40%, given the fact that most people don't even care. They just go ahead and pay. Even then, the abatement is 39–40%. So obviously those who are actually looking into it, who are looking hopefully or possibly for help from a professional, or they are knowledgeable enough in understanding and knowing and following the process themselves, they are I mean, obviously $10 billion is a lot of money to be abated against the penalties.
It's a significant amount.
Correct.
You know. I have heard that the original purpose of the IRS was to punish the taxpayers if they would default in any kind of situation, like late filing or not paying taxes when due. But now I understand the purpose has changed. Now the real mission of the revenue officer is to put or collect more revenue out of penalties, because I understand this is one of the parameters on which the revenue officer is going to be evaluated. Is that correct?
That's actually hypothetically speaking, you can argue that yes, it is quite possible, but there's several different things involved here. Number one, the purpose of the penalties by the IRS from the very beginning. The purpose of the penalties was to deter non-compliance, not to generate revenue. This was never the case, and I don't think that has changed that much, because even if you look at it now, at the end of the day, your penalties will never exceed your principal. Your principal will always be lowered, because your penalties are a percentage of your principal. The idea is to get to that principal first. Even if they abate the penalty, they're not abating the principal. Remember that. So even now, yeah, they are trying to collect more based on the resources that they have available. They're trying to probably produce more per capita. I mean, it's an economic model, like
because of the budget cuts.
Exactly, because of the budget cuts. So yeah, maybe they might be strict in not abating them as much. Maybe they are strict in assessing them more efficiently, not letting things go that were let go in the past. Yes, all that is true, but the fact that you have certain rights in getting those penalty abatements, effective tax management, effective financial management is a very good example. What if I was sick, I had a broken leg, I was in bed for 3 months and I could not even move and I could not make any money, and there was no way for me to even pay a single penny to anyone. That is a very good reason. If you can justify that, obviously you qualify for an abatement.
So that means you have to make your case that it is for a good cause.
Exactly.
So that's the bottom line.
You can, if you can make your case for a good cause yourself and be convincing enough to take care of it yourself, that would be the first option. Your second option would be to look for a persistent professional who knows how to get it done, if not in the first attempt, the second, the third. Eventually, a good, persistent professional will get something back for you. That is a fact. That's a statement of fact.
There is absolutely no second thought about it. And I also understand that if you are keeping your record unblemished with the IRS, chances of abatement are very higher.
Absolutely.
Is that
yes,
correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, because they, as I said, the FTA, the first time abatement, they have a tool within their software at the IRS. Again, I mean, I don't know if people know about this or not, but they have a tool actually built in within their software. They will ask you certain questions. They will run those answers that they get from you from that tool, and they will give you an answer while you are on the phone to let you know, yes, your penalty has been abated, and within 4 to 6 weeks you will be receiving a letter confirming that, and your account has a zero balance now.
Now, let's talk about a situation where the penalty has been imposed by IRS, and this person or the taxpayer wants to apply to the IRS for abatement of this penalty. So do you think that he can seek guidance from IRS, or he has to hire a professional like you?
Again, it all comes down to how knowledgeable and how efficient and you are in following up, how much time you have to actually dedicate to this. A tax professional has access to a hotline called Preferred Provider Line. When we call the IRS, we do not call the number that the taxpayer would call. So granted, it's the same department, it's still the IRS, but who knows, a professional might be able to get to the IRS a lot quicker than the taxpayer themselves.
Can I borrow your hotline number?
So what happens is that when a professional calls, they let you discuss multiple accounts at the same time. So when a professional calls, they're talking about several different accounts.
Or do they allow?
They do restrict it to a certain number.
Okay.
They're not going to go crazy with the numbers, but they will restrict it to certain numbers. But once you get through them, you are able to actually, so even if you're discussing two, your productivity is twice the productivity of anyone else, and then plus the time that it takes for you to get there. So it is always, again, as I said, if you owe $10,000, and that could easily be abated or waived, or you could go in the currently not collectible status, or anything like any kind of resolution that would reduce that $10,000 significantly, then I don't think there's any harm in paying somebody a couple of $1,000s to get that done. I'm not saying that it's going to be that. I'm just trying to put things in perspective. That if you pay a fraction of what you will be saving in the long run, it's always a good idea to just have somebody else do it for you, as opposed to taking the time, going through the process, not knowing the process, coming back to square one, starting again, while in the meantime your statute is running out and you're running fast towards a levy or a lien or something like that. It's always a good idea. Give it to somebody else, have them take care of it for you. Because again, even though you may qualify for certain abatements, if you get rejected the first time, it becomes a little more difficult to go back and try to make your case again. If you do not seek help at that point by a professional.
Okay, I think that makes sense. Now, let's talk about the avenues which are available to the taxpayers to seek abatement. I know that there are several of them. Could you please just tell us a few in the interest of time?
So as I said, the first and foremost, depending on the amount, if the amount is not significant, every letter that you get notifying you of the penalties, every letter is going to have an 800 number on it. You just call that number, whoever you get. Obviously, they will verify who you are, and then you let them know, what are my options here? Is it possible for me to get an abatement? They will tell you whether you qualify for the abatement or not. That's your the first order. That's the first order of those. That's the very basic step that you can take. If it doesn't happen, there's certain written communication that can be done. There's certain words you have to put in. There's certain criteria that you have to follow to get that abatement in an open written communication. If it doesn't work that way, if the amount is even higher, then there's actually IRS prescribed forms that you fill out. Again, you have to be careful with the kind of information you put in those forms. You submit those forms and apply for an abatement. As a matter of fact, you have options to even ask for a refund of a penalty that you have already paid. Something that is a little more difficult to deal with. But as I said, if you would have qualified for that abatement even before you paid it, there's no reason why you should not be getting a refund of what you have paid.
So it's a question of articulating very well.
Exactly, understanding the process, knowing the reasons, knowing the terminology and the reasons and everything else that is required, and so on and so forth.
Now, cameraman is indicating we are left with just 1 minute. Can you quickly tell us how much time does it take when you make an application for abatement or penalty to the IRS?
It all depends on how much information you have. Just filling out the form is probably 20-30 minutes. It's the gathering of the information, providing the backup that goes with that application, and so on and so forth. That could potentially, depending on the amount and circumstances and the time frame, it could be weeks, could be months. It all depends on what you're trying to put together.
And the real time is spent in arguing what is a good cause here. Right?
Correct, that's right.
Great.
That's correct.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baloch, for
You're
coming
welcome.
to our studios.
Thank you very much.
And answering questions about the abatement of IRS penalties. I am pretty sure that our viewers have taken full benefit of your presence here. and look forward to seeing you again and probably asking you more questions. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.